What's going on, everybody? Khalipa's Tech here, coming back at you with another video. In this video, we're going to be comparing the Samsung Galaxy S21 FE to the OnePlus Nord N20 5G. Now, I wasn't originally planning on doing this comparison, but I really wanted to see how an entry-level flagship phone that I personally use for pretty much everything on this channel stacks up against one of the most affordable 5G phones on the market. Now, before we get started, I do want to let you guys know I am recording this video with the Google Pixel 6a. I got this phone about a week ago, and I really wanted to see how good it is with video recording, and I figured this was the perfect test. Now, if you want to learn more about the Google Pixel 6a or either of these phones in the video, I will be linking to everything in the description, so if you're interested, definitely check that out. But without further ado, let's get into it. So with the Samsung Galaxy S21 FE, we're getting a 6.4-inch 120Hz dynamic AMOLED display with a resolution of 1080p, a PPI of 411, an aspect ratio of 20:9, and an 85.3% screen-to-body ratio. With the OnePlus Nord N20 5G, we're getting a 6.43-inch AMOLED display with a resolution of 1080p, a PPI of 409, an aspect ratio of 20:9, and the screen-to-body ratio is actually the same at about 85.3%. So these phones both have really good displays and they're pretty similar. They're essentially the same size, same dimensions, same resolution, and even similar display technology. But that being said, the Samsung Galaxy S21 FE does have two different advantages here. First of all, a dynamic AMOLED display is going to be a little bit better than a regular AMOLED. The colors are going to be a little bit brighter and bolder, and in addition to this, the Samsung Galaxy S21 FE also has a higher refresh rate at 120Hz versus 60Hz with the OnePlus Nord N20 5G, and this is going to make the movement on the screen a little bit faster and smoother. Now, honestly, I doubt you can even see it in this video. Normally, a higher refresh rate doesn't make a huge difference, but since these displays in particular are so similar otherwise, I would say in general, you are going to get somewhat of a better experience with the Samsung Galaxy S21 FE. But that being said, again, it is really close, and with the OnePlus Nord N20 5G, although it only has a regular AMOLED and not a dynamic AMOLED, and the refresh rate is still only 60Hz, you are going to get a great experience with this phone too. So if you're consuming content like watching videos, playing games, something like that, then either of these phones will be a great choice. Now for storage, both of these phones are getting 128GB of internal storage, but the OnePlus Nord N20 5G does have microSD card expansion, whereas the Samsung Galaxy S21 FE does not. That's definitely one big disadvantage when it comes to these higher end phones, because unfortunately most of them don't have microSD card expansion. I could say the same thing about stuff like the Google Pixel 6a, for example, or the iPhone SE, or pretty much any iPhone for that matter. Unfortunately, none of those higher end phones do get microSD card expansion, but that being said, for the average user, you're probably not going to fill up 128GB anyway. But if you have a lot of photos and videos and stuff, then I would say the OnePlus Nord N20 5G does have an advantage there. But again, I do personally use the S21 FE to record pretty much all the videos for this channel, and I haven't had any issues with storage, albeit I do delete a lot of stuff. But still, in general, I feel like I do use a lot more space than the average user. So again, for most people, even though it is kind of a bummer that the S21 FE doesn't have microSD card expansion, since you are already getting 128GB of internal storage, it's probably not going to be too bad. Now for security features, both phones do have fingerprint scanners, and both of them are actually right in the display, giving them a nice premium look. So starting with the S21 FE, let's go ahead and give them a try. There we go, one more time. And there we go. So as you can see, real fast and responsive, no issues here. Moving on to the OnePlus Nord N20 5G. There we go, one more time. And there we go. So honestly, as far as the performance goes, I would consider these fingerprint scanners to be about equal, which is honestly pretty impressive for the OnePlus Nord N20 5G, considering this is a $300 phone versus the S21 FE, which is much more expensive. So in general, if you do want a phone with a good fingerprint scanner, then either of these phones will be just fine. And in addition to this, we also got Face Unlock with both of these phones, so it's nice to have two different options to unlock them besides a pin. Now taking a look at the camera setups here, for the front-facing cameras, with the Samsung Galaxy S21 FE, we got a nice looking hole punch design, and this camera is 32 megapixels. Then with the OnePlus Nord N20 5G, we got another hole punch design here, except this one is off to the side instead of being centered, and this camera is 16 megapixels. Then on the back, with the Samsung Galaxy S21 FE, we got a triple camera setup with a 12 megapixel main camera, an 8 megapixel telephoto lens, and a 12 megapixel ultra-wide camera. With the OnePlus Nord N20 5G, we got a triple camera setup as well, with the 64 megapixel main camera, a 2 megapixel macro camera, and a 2 megapixel depth sensing camera. So in general, general, both of these phones do have really good camera setups, but I do want to point out that with the Samsung Galaxy S21 FE, although the megapixel count for the main camera is much lower than the OnePlus Nord N25G, in case you don't know, keep in mind megapixel count really isn't everything, and although the OnePlus Nord N25G does have a higher megapixel main camera, I would still say the Samsung Galaxy S21 FE does take much better pictures. So while the OnePlus Nord N25G is going to be great for casual photos, with the Samsung Galaxy S21 FE, I can tell you from experience, you can take some really professional looking photos here, and honestly, camera wise, this phone is really on the level of stuff like the iPhone 13. So in general, if you want to take the best photos possible, I would say the Samsung Galaxy S21 FE will have a huge advantage here, but if you're just taking casual photos, maybe for social media or something like that, then the OnePlus Nord N25G is really all you're going to need. Now if you want to see full photo and video samples for either of these phones, definitely check out my full reviews and camera reviews for them, which I will be linking to in the video description. Now as far as video recording goes, with the Samsung Galaxy S21 FE, this phone can record in up to 4K at 60 frames per second in both the rear and front cameras, and with the OnePlus Nord N25G, this phone maxes out at 1080p at 30 frames per second in both the rear and front. So as you can see here, it's really the same kind of thing as the photos. On one hand, with the Samsung Galaxy S21 FE, this phone is at the level where you really start to get truly professional level photos and videos. But on the other hand, for more casual use, I can tell you from experience, the OnePlus Nord N25G does take fine photos and videos, and for most people, unless you're really into photography, or maybe you're an influencer or a vlogger or something, then you're probably going to be perfectly fine with the OnePlus Nord N25G. Now as far as RAM and processor go, with the Samsung Galaxy S21 FE, we're getting 6GB of RAM with the Qualcomm Snapdragon 888 5G processor. Now keep in mind, there is another variant of this phone that has 8GB of RAM, as well as 256GB of storage, which I completely forgot to mention. But again, this specific phone in my hand only has 128GB of internal storage and 6GB of RAM. Now with the OnePlus Nord N25G, we're getting 6GB of RAM as well, with a Qualcomm Snapdragon 695 5G processor. Now I did run a Geekbench 5 benchmark test on both of these phones, and with the Samsung Galaxy S21 FE, we're getting a single core score of 1081 and a multi-core score of 3227. With the OnePlus Nord N25G, we're getting a single core score of 683 and a multi-core score of 1972. So as you can clearly see here, the Samsung Galaxy S21 FE, being an entry-level flagship phone, is going to be much faster than the OnePlus Nord N25G. But that being said, from my experience, the OnePlus Nord N25G has been plenty fast for pretty much everything. I've done stuff like web browsing, social media, and even a good amount of mobile gaming on this phone, and it's run perfectly fine. But then again, if you want the fastest phone between the two, or maybe you're doing stuff like higher performance mobile gaming, then the Samsung Galaxy S21 FE is obviously going to be the better choice here. But again, for average use for most people, the OnePlus Nord N25G is going to be plenty fast enough. Now these phones actually have the same size battery at 4500 mAh, but each phone does have a slight advantage over the other in slightly different areas. On one hand, with the Samsung Galaxy S21 FE, we are getting wireless charging, whereas the OnePlus Nord N25G does not have wireless charging. So if you do like that feature, definitely keep this in mind. But on the other hand, the OnePlus Nord N25G has 33 watt fast charging, whereas with the Samsung Galaxy S21 FE, it's only 25 watts. Now in my experience, fast charging does make a huge difference, especially if you don't have a lot of time to charge up your phone. And what's even better is the OnePlus Nord N25G actually does come with a 33 watt fast charger, so you don't even need to buy one yourself. But at the end of the day, despite their differences, which are honestly pretty minor in my opinion, both phones do get great battery life. So if having a good battery is a priority for you, then either one will do the job just fine. Another thing to keep in mind here is the software. With the Samsung Galaxy S21 FE, we are currently on Android 12, and seeing that it is an entry-level flagship phone, it is going to get support for quite a while, so you can expect to get several major updates with this phone in the future. On the other hand, with the OnePlus Nord N25G, this phone unfortunately only has Android 11. Now I would imagine at some point OnePlus is going to update it to Android 12, but I mean Android 13 is right around the corner, and since they dropped this phone only a couple months ago, I don't really know why they gave it Android 11. So that's definitely a disappointment. So if having the newest version of Android as it comes out is important to you, then the Samsung Galaxy S21 FE will have a huge advantage. But that being said, Android 11 isn't a bad software in and of itself, and it runs pretty well on this phone. So if you don't care about the software, then of course this phone only having Android 11 won't be that big a deal. In addition to this, both phones do have NFC, so if you like to make contactless mobile payments using tap and pay, then you'll be happy to know you can do that with either phone. But in conclusion, which of these devices is better? Now obviously spec-wise, the Samsung Galaxy S21 FE being a flagship phone is going to be objectively better than the OnePlus Nord N25G, but keep in mind this is a flagship phone with sort of flagship prices. You can get some good deals on it, but it does MSRP for $700-800, I don't exactly remember, whereas with the OnePlus Nord N25G, this phone is like $300 or less. And if I'm being honest here, from what I've experienced with the OnePlus Nord N25G, although the Samsung Galaxy S21 FE is much better, I feel like this is all the average user is going to need. Sure, this phone does have a couple fancy features the OnePlus Nord N20 doesn't, like wireless charging for example, but in general, if you're really just after the main essentials, the OnePlus Nord N20 is really all you're going to need. But on the other hand, if you want the fastest processor between the two, or if you want to record 4K videos and take really high quality photos, in that case, the Samsung Galaxy S21 FE might be a better choice. But in general, despite their differences, I do think both of these phones are great devices that provide a lot of value for the money, and you're really not going to go wrong with either of them. But this concludes my comparison between the Samsung Galaxy S21 FE and the OnePlus Nord N25. Now again, if you want to learn more about either of these phones individually, I will be linking to several other videos about them in the description, as well as some information about pricing and availability because this is always changing. But this concludes my comparison between the Samsung Galaxy S21 FE and the OnePlus Nord N25. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope you found this information useful as well. If you did, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button, and let me know in the comments what you thought about the Google Pixel 6a's recording quality. I've never recorded a video on this phone before, so it's definitely going to be interesting to see how it turns out. But that's it for this video. Be sure to follow Kalipa's Tech on Twitter and Instagram, and as always, I will see you in the next one.